my God. So many people here today. Thank you for being here. Can you hear me? Fabulous. Do you want to test your mic?
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
1, 2. Victor?
Testing. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you for joining us today for this brief conversation. They have all of them going for an hour, and then we shift or go elsewhere. We'll make time, of course, for Q&A at the end. We're interested in those questions and conversation that might kind of erupt or grow from there. My name is Regina García. I am a scenic designer. Hello. I am also the head of scenic design at DePaul University in Chicago. I don't tell them I'm here. I came in early. Anywho, and my panel today are the honorable, and I'm trying not to I'm just a big fangirl here. Ruben Santiago-Hudson, actor, playwright, director. Award-winning actor, playwright, director, and award-winning lighting designer and educator, Victor and Yutan. I had some questions written down in a particular order, right? And because of the earlier conversations today and what's been going on in the hallway, and what about this, what about that, and are there any new models and systems that we need to kind of, undo and for our practices moving into the future, I decided to start with the first question. My first question is number 6 on my list, and it speaks to this idea that I think most students and early career designers are bumping into these days, which is this quote unquote paying your dues. And when is it time? I guess is paying your dues connected to a timeline? How do we practice if we're not invited to practice as early career artists and makers? Because most of us are multi-hyphenated. And that is a big question, and we were just starting the conversation in the next room, and there's just so much to kind of unpack there, but I will say, as an early career practitioner, you need that gig. You need that gig to grow, to mature, to then connect the dots and to contribute to the conversation and bring people in and grow that family, grow that network. So my question, I guess, oh my God, I think it takes 1.5 piece of paper. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. Okay. This is the narrative. For many years, we've had this model in place where early career designers and makers have to pay their dues first. What does that timeline look like in terms of practice? Or can we model something else that could be more useful because of the multi-generational aspect of our field and also the multi-hyphenated nature of our current practice? Fancy, right? But paying our dues, or paying your dues before you get that gig that really puts you out there, makes you visible.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever we're in right now. It's so good to see you guys. Listen, this is a different generation, a new generation. People do things instantly. Let me get this instantly, let me get that instantly, let me call Grubhub, let me go to Google, so I understand it's a different mentality, but there is something that never wavers, and it's skill, it's a talent, and it's all coming together. People don't hire how long you've apprenticed, they hire your skill. They hire that you can do the job that they're looking for to get done. You cannot do that job or prove to anyone you can do that job if you never let them taste the meal. You could say, I make the best chili in the world, but if you don't put it in front of me, I'm not gonna buy that. But if you let me get a couple spoonsful and say, you might not be the best, but you're pretty good. You got to show me something. And the only way you can show something is being in the room. So who do you hook yourself up connected to that you can learn from? Because one thing that never changed was how good a person does their work. Everybody wants fine. The finest clothes, the finest car, the finest food. You want fine. I want the finest artist with me. But that is a lot of things. That's not only what you can do talent-wise, that's what you bring into room as a human being. So you're working on a lot of things, but you have to connect yourself. You never stop apprenticing. I am apprenticing. I am learning in every room from everyone around me. My job as a director is not to tell people what to do. It's to have a vision, put that vision out there, and put people in the room and say, that's my vision, what do you see? And we start adding and adding and adding. Then I start as the director honing and honing, what do we need for this? And we put it there. But I need people in the room who can bring something to that vision, not just do what I say. I do not have all the answers. I had a vision, and I'm gonna sell it. You know, if I could sell you a Ford Pinto, I'll sell you my vision, but it ain't whole. It'll never be complete unless I get my sound, my light, my choreographer, my composer, my you know, everybody, my set designer, my wig designer. It's never complete. So what you have to do is learn the craft and be the finest at it. Connect yourself where you can learn. And interestingly enough, the young folks in here, there are people that want to teach. The question is, do you want to hear it?
Victor.
Excellent
Thank you.
point.
Yes.
I do want to say this. All through my career, all through a lot of people's career, yes, you have to pay your dues. But there's two things about paying your dues that you need to remember. One is you got to put yourself out there, and no matter what job you do, if you work in the theater, you could be a designer, but you're assisting or you're part of the crew. If you work hard, people notice. People give you opportunities because they notice that you work hard. All right? If you're going to sit back and just only do what you're told, guess what's going to happen? No one's going to hire you. All right? I'll give a good example of my beginning. I'm always on top of assisting a designer. That's how I got my start. I'm always on top of things. I'm always like, this is before computers, remember. This is going back to the dark ages, you know, where dinosaurs roamed the earth. There's no computer, so you have to update everything daily. That means I had to keep track of every single light that's being used, every single equipment. And if you do that, and the designer is saying, well, I don't know if I have a light, and go, here, you have a free light that you never used. They get to use it. So you keep on top of that, people will notice that you have done your job. And when came a time when a director asked for me, people say, well, give him a chance. He works hard. I got my first break. That's how you do it.
And it will reveal itself when people say, when are you ready? There's no timeline on it. It will clearly reveal itself when you're going to be working for money. But you got to work somewhere for free. You're going to have to work somewhere for free just so people can taste the wares. And it will clearly be, all of a sudden, I was acting and doing other things where I was making my money. And one day they were giving me more money, $100, and I was only making $50 doing the other thing. And they give me $100 to do this play. I'm going to go do it. They're actually paying me more to do the play. So it just showed me that this is what you should be doing, spending 100% of your time doing, and not almost doing it. You know what I'm saying? And people say, well, how do I get in? How do I get in? People walk up to me all the time. You know, I want to work next to you. I want to work next to you. I want to work. Well, what do you do? Are you in school right now? Have you developed a family, a group that's your group? I mean, y'all young folks got a lot more than we had that you could put together and do your own things. You can make your own films. You could do anything to present yourself.
Be more entrepreneurial.
Yeah, you can. You
put the work out there.
And no one knows. I mean, you know, don't be the guy that's, you know, in Times Square handing somebody a CD that they don't want. Take the CD. You know, that's a different, you know, you ain't taking no CD. You know what I'm saying? But when you get next to excellence, There are excellent people in this room, veteran designers in this room that I look at. When you get next to them, when you're at the school that they're teaching, or you up at them saying, you know, if you ever need anything, you know, you guys have heard of Jonathan Majors, obviously. Jonathan Majors came up to North Carolina School of Art and sat in the Signature Theater lobby, slept there waiting for me to come in every day. Coach, I got to get in the room. I'm like, you can't get in the room? I can't let you into people's room. We doing sacred stuff in here. I don't know you. Well, brother, let's have a cup of tea. Let me give you some advice. Every day he's there. Finally, I'm like, come on, man. Just sit in the corner. Don't say nothing. Just sit right there. Don't say nothing. Just sit there. This dude going to sit in the corner. He's Jonathan. He all right, y'all. Y'all can still do your work. And eventually, he's in the circle, in the prayer circle at the end of rehearsal. And eventually, I'm hiring Jonathan to do 2 August Wilson presentations at the Green Space. And eventually, I'm hiring him to do another play. And eventually, he's a star, and I can't get him on the phone because he's my man. Now I get Jonathan on the phone. But I'm saying that persistent, creating an opportunity. And then on top of that, one day I'm having auditions for a piano lesson I think I was directing. And I go up to Telsey, and I see him in the room. I say, oh, man, you got you an audition? He said, no, coach, I'm your reader. He was my reader. Everywhere I turned, Jonathan was there. He wanted it. He was hungry, and it shows in his work. It revealed itself to the world that Jonathan was here. And if you got talent and perseverance, find yourself in the room.
And if you have 5 minutes to mentor, right? I think most of us did have those champions and mentors early on. We became part of ensembles. I know that I owe a lot of my practice and my unique and individual, at least perhaps the quirky ones that I've developed for myself. I owe a lot to Pregones Theater. I owe a lot to Miriam Colon, may she rest in peace, and a couple of other artists and makers that I've met. Ron Himes from the St. Louis Black Rep. Who were those champions and mentors for you early on? Were there individuals? Was there an ensemble that folded you in to the mix and said, come?
I would say my first mentor, the person I consider my mentor, is Marty Ehrenstein. He was a lighting designer, the resident lighting designer for the New York Shakespeare Festival. I was just a lowly electrician, and I saw something, and I mentioned it to him. And if you know Marty, he's like always yelling, and he says, "Who said that? Who said that? If you saw that, you should be a lighting designer." You know, and I, not that got me into lighting design, but that was the spur where when I became master electrician of the New York Shakespeare Festival, I realized that I did not know anything about lighting design. So I asked to assist, and that's when I started assisting. And it was because of assisting that I became a designer, that I started designing. And that's what I meant about hard work. If you work hard and everybody notices you, guess what? When your opportunity comes, you get to do it.
You know, when I look at I've had mentors all along the way, and no matter how hard I tried to not be successful, they wouldn't allow me to fail. And in New York, when I look at Douglas Turner Ward at the Negro Ensemble Company, and I did the Jonathan Majors to get to Doug. And Clinton Turner, who was his assistant, I told a story to Clinton the other day. Clinton was in the room as Doug's assistant. I was in the lobby trying to get a audition for Soldier's Play. And they put me last on the list. And the list was getting down. I wasn't going to get there because it was going to end at 5:30. Doug came out the room at Theater 4 to go to the men's room. And I said, Mr. Ward, I'm Ruben Santiago, I'm trying to get an audition. What did you do? Well, I don't know. If you get in, you get in. You know, so I waited. He came out of the men's room, and as soon as he came out, I said, I ever tell you about the time I learned how to speak Cherokee Indian? But back in Crossroads, there was a light-skinned colored man, told everybody he was a Cherokee Indian, couldn't speak no English. He was a drifter, took up with Lottie Bell McCoy over in the Hollow. Pete McCoy's sister. How they got together, only the Lord knows. I started doing the monologue. I swear to God, I did the monologue, and Doug looked at me and said, well, when at the end, you're going to come in. Now, I told this story to Clinton, Clinton was in the room. Clinton said, that's what happened? I said, yeah. He said, because all of a sudden Doug came from the bathroom and said, put this name on the list. Ruben, somebody, Spanish name. So Doug, Lloyd Richards, George C. Wolfe, those, I sat on George's step. The hustle, this ain't LA. LA, you got to get through 16 security people to get to the lobby. In New York, you be sitting on people's doorstep. Hey, man, can I give you the script? Be like, man, you crazy, man. So Woody King gave me my first job. Victor lit one of my first jobs in New York in 83, 84, Boogie Woogie and Booker T. So Woody, who's offered a lot of opportunities to a lot of people. Dean directed it. Yeah, so I want to encourage you guys to know that sometimes you're looking far and wide for that mentor, and sometimes that mentor is right next to you, and you don't even know it, but you need it, and when you get it, you got to find a way to get that back.
When I first approached Pregones for a gig, and this was after graduation from college, I went through a whole list of like 35 Latino arts organizations, and I was like, okay, I'm going to stay in New York. I need to work for one of these companies. It was like 30-something. So I wrote to all 30-something organizations, and only one replied, and that was Pregones up in the Bronx. So I was like, okay, well, that's going to be my first stop. When I went in through the door, I thought I needed to learn about craft, and I did, because I knew very little about theater, very little about devising, and community-based work that now is a great compositional strategy when devising work, and also just in a regular rehearsal room. But I also discovered other things that I didn't know, like you were saying, I didn't know that I didn't know when I was there, right? And slowly but surely they revealed themselves, and every time I learned a new one, I was like, okay, there's that lesson, and there's that little thing that I didn't know about listening, about not just listening, but deep listening, which requires you to be quiet a little longer. And all the little things about being prepared in the room for anything. And if your colleagues are prepared, you need to be doubly prepared to answer all the extra questions. And also anything that had to do with supporting the family, supporting the community, and making sure that those connections were constant and consistent. Those lessons I didn't know I needed to be part of this community, to be part of this field. What were you, you walked in because you wanted practice, visibility, you wanted to connect to this group of artists, but what were those lessons that you're like, oh, I did not know I needed that one?
Does that ever end?
It does not end. True.
It's really, I wanted to get back in class. I wanted to study. I wanted to study, and every time I was thinking about who I'm going to study with, I'm saying, shit, you don't know what I know. I'm trying to study with somebody, then all of a sudden it hit me. Because Lloyd was gone. That was my last acting class. Lloyd would pick 14 actors and go to the Actors Center. Nobody would know, but Lloyd would have Mary Alice and Big Paul Butler and Cicely Tyson and Stephen McKinley. And we'd all be in the room working with Lloyd like little kids. When Lloyd passed on, I said I need to study. And one day I was sitting with Chuck Woody Iwuji. And I said, Chuck, man, I got to study, man. He said, why don't we call Kristen Linkletter? I said, you think she'd come over the pond if we all put like $1,500 together? She'd come give us a week? And he was like, yeah. I said, listen, let's only pick like 8 people, and so we can really get a lot of attention. And so we called her and said, we want to study with you. We'll fly you over and put you up, and we give you a little bit of money to take back. But she said, who? I said, it's Ruben Santiago-Hudson. She said, of course, I'll be on my way. And then 2 weeks later, she was gone. And it was like, and I stopped and I said, I want to get in class. So my class is usually with my family, with the people who I'm working with, because I have questions for them. And watching their process and watching them work is my class now, my formal class at this age now, looking at 70 in front of me. So it's like that life class is one thing, but you would be surprised as a director what you learn from your lighting designer. what you learn from your choreographer, you will be surprised, because they're all directors too. Inside of them, they're directors too. They're directing their own world, and they're fighting for that costume change. They're fighting for that wig. They're directors of their own world, and you have to be open enough to allow some penetration of that vision they have. Because if you come in with that singular vision, you've already put up a wall of limitation, and there's no other possibility. So with that other person's vision, now you have risk, because that's outside of your vision. Now you're taking a chance that you didn't come up with, and that chance is where the fruit's gonna be. That's how far you gotta get out on the limb. Because the limb can get fragile and break, but that's where the fruit is. So you got to get far out on the limb to get the fruit. And you're not gonna get far out on the limb with just your vision. Without risk, there's no reward. And so you have to create an opportunity for people. And a lot of stuff they say ain't gonna make no sense. And you're gonna look and you just stop for a second and say, I'm gonna put that in my nightclub act, but it ain't gonna be in the play. But that's a good idea. I'm gonna keep that. You know what I'm saying? So it's the fun of this. What we do, we're artists, y'all. And when you take the joy out of it, go paint a wall, go drive truck. We must enjoy the process of discovery and creation so we can have the impact and power to disseminate something that can move the world, that can move communities, that can move audiences. I ain't gonna preach no more.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want to add on to that. There was something you said that, which is, I do say it, and I keep saying it. There was a lot I didn't know when I started designing. There was a lot, because I was never taught how to design. All right? I assisted, and I assisted, and I assisted. I learned from assisting. So when I was given the opportunity to design, I did not know the risk I was taking, okay? The first time I was offered a totally reflective set, I said yes. And the set designer said, I was so glad you're on that show, because everybody else said no.
That's right. Thumbs up from the set designer.
You know?
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah. But I did not know that was supposed to be something you're not supposed to do as a lighting designer. Well, I didn't know that. So I did it.
I think my set designer said the other day, yesterday in a meeting, she said, I'm gonna put a shiny reflective bottom on that. And Jane Cox, who's lighting it, said, great. She was sitting in the corner jumping up, great. I said, Jane, really? She said, yeah, it's gonna be reflecting. So it's that risk that you're talking about. You'll never know what you don't know unless you go and try it, you know? You just don't know.
That's right. Maria Cristina Fuste, who's right there, lighting designer, she never says no to ceiling pieces. I'm the set designer. I was like, let's have a little ceiling. You know, let's compress that space down. She's like, okay. You figure it out. You figure it out together.
Opposed to where do I get my light in?
Exactly.
Well, let's figure that out. You know?
We'll figure it out, right? Collective making. I guess as you continue to work across the country, and I bring this up because I bumped into a situation just last week, and I need your advice. When you work, in the cultural specific theaters, how they call them, there's a bit of a shorthand. There are things that are honored, and things that you talk out, or whatever, you find common ground really easily, I think. But sometimes when you go into some other theaters, regionally in particular, that are not necessarily used to do programming that they're doing perhaps once a year, the Black play for Black History Month, or the Latino show in September, they're not necessarily used to asking the right questions, or perhaps framing your work in the best light for the community, for the staff. And sometimes it's kind of, as a designer coming in, it's perhaps it adds on to my list of responsibilities. I'm always willing and able to have a conversation with marketing about about the design and what they should put on the website about the design. Because sometimes they do like to make up a couple of things about it ahead of time. But just last week, I bumped into this situation where, and I take this very seriously, as a set designer, because I'm the first one up with the director, there's so much that we do not know about the play. Mm-hmm. We live in this what if moment. What if this, what if that? Let's put a pin on this, let's try this for now, until we discover something differently in rehearsal, if we can. So that moment when we're about to welcome the actors into the space is a very special moment for me. I like to prepare for it. I like to craft it, of what I'm going to say to the actors, how I'm going to, what aspect of the process I'm going to share, because they're taking it on. They're taking on the next step of that process, right? We're collective making. And I sent in my presentation. I was ready to make, and they edited out so many parts of it. Without consultation, without a conversation about the why and who was going to be in the room. And finally, I discovered that there were going to be some board of director members in the room. And that kind of editing this day feels very wrong, feels very awkward, and doesn't really, let's say, lend itself for a collaborative yeah, I'll say that. It doesn't lend itself for a wonderful moment in the season programming for us as guest designers and for the community that's going to come in, hopefully for that show. And I wonder if you bumped into any kind of situation as you've, if there's a story to share, if there are recommendations as we continue to let's say, navigate these awkward moments after COVID of what's going to happen and who's leading what conversation in the room. What are your thoughts, advice? I'll take it. I'll take any little bit of nugget of wisdom.
You want me to say you want to go, or you want me to?
I can go first.
Yeah.
One thing, talk about tradition. One thing that I always love about Crossroad Theater, and I've done a lot of shows for them, was Crossroad have this circle they do at the end of each performance. And one of the biggest thing they do is at the end of one production and the beginning of the next production, there's a passing on
That's right.
of that circle. And to me, it's very powerful. It was very powerful that there is a continuous tradition at Crossroads of handing the torch from one production to the next. And I always loved that because I always felt like I feed on the energy of the previous production. And I think more theater should do that.
Absolutely. I love the check-ins and the check-outs.
Yeah.
Of like, we're here. Yeah.
It's very important for any production, for the team that is creating that, particularly the writer and the director more so than anyone else, to control the narrative of what that looks like going to the public. What are you trying to say in your promotion and advertising? I guess I'm a veteran. Well, damn sure I am a veteran. Shit, thinking about it. But I don't do a production if I'm not in on what that poster looks like, what that promotion, what that radio spot is going to sound like. I need to know. In a great part of the failure of a lot of plays that are done is they don't know how to attract their audience, which is not singular. To have success, you must know your core audience, and you must know how to cast the net wide enough to bring people who love great theater, people who love this particular writer, people who just are curious. You need to invite them all, people who have not been invited to the theater, finding a price point for them. So the last play that I did, that somebody put the poster out before I saw it, caught a lot of hell. black people sitting on cars with hats pulled down, little cartoon things with little girls with short skirts with their hand out asking for money. No. That's not the play we're selling. That's not what we're selling. So it's very important. And now I'm in a fight, and it looks that the consultation for the director on any promotion of a play is going to start being part of your contract. But consultation, listen to that word, that they got to talk to you. They don't mean have to do what you say do. Because a lot of these theaters, they say to me, well, we hired the person to do the art way before we hired you. Then you needed to hire another director. Because I need to see the narrative that what we're saying to Jitney. I'll give you a case point, Jitney. They wanted to put 4 people on the poster. None of them was the woman. There's only one woman in that play. And I said, you're going to put the woman on the poster. No, she's not the star. Well, who is the star of Jitney? It's an ensemble piece. No, she's an integral part of the play. She turns the play on its head. Every August Wilson play, the woman turns the play. Whether she has the most words or not, she is the one that pivots the play. So I said, plus, ain't a whole lot of people gonna walk by and stop and stare at 4 black men standing on a poster in Times Square. Mm-hmm. I need a woman, so even a white woman to stop and say, that's a nice looking woman. What is it? Oh, this is August Wilson. It's advertising, it's promotion, and it's also saying it ain't a bunch of brothers just sitting around talking. There's a woman, and when there's a woman, that means things and energy in the room is gonna be different. And that attracts just a little bitty different audience, but it attracts a little bitty different audience that brings a little bitty another audience. So you have to understand what you say, how you say it, who you say it to, and what it looks like. Lackawanna Blues poster, that's me. I said, I don't want me in some period costume. I want to be the coolest, hippest, cleanest, handsomest cat you can have with hard brick behind me and smokestacks in the background, in the name Lackawanna Blues that HBO made $50 million on, bigger than me, and my face being other things, so people can say, oh, there's that guy again. There's that guy. Oh, Lackawanna Blues, so what do you got to do with that? That's a combination that a lot of money got spent on Lackawanna Blues, and a lot of people have seen me, whether it was Castle, 14 million viewers a week, know that face. It's just strategic, y'all. It ain't deep. It ain't rocket science. It's what do you want and what do you need to go get that?
Well, I do want to say this. As a lighting designer, I don't have any influence or care, but I do know a lot of set designers are very upset if a poster shows a set, it is not theirs. And they insist that if a poster shows a portion of the setting, that it correspond to the design, and not some graphic designer's fanciful, idea of what that set should be. But I do know set designers that got awfully upset when it is not representative of their set.
Absolutely. I think as designers, we're being invited more and more into those conversations with the community and introducing our plays and the that thing that we've been carefully building together. It's important, and it shouldn't just be randomly, let's say, cut up. But anyway, my apologies. I got some nuggets. I'll go back. All right. I had some questions here about collaboration, about finding a home theater or a home ensemble, finding your group of, like you were saying, risk takers, and those collaborators that speak your language, that push you, that keep you growing and expanding, since it continues as we. When did you find those folks? Have you found those folks? Are you still looking for those folks? There's some.
I would say early on, I used to work lucky. I was lucky to start out where I started out. But I worked with the Manhattan Project. I did 3 shows for them. I would have done more, but they disbanded after the 3rd show. To me, it was great experience working with them because they were an ensemble group of actors And they would chime in on everything with design, with their costumes, with props, you name it. They'd chime in. And they collectively come to an agreement whether something work or not.
That's right.
And one of the great time was I showed a light cue and someone said, "That looks great, by acclamation, that's the cue we want." Other times they asked to show two separate cues and see which one works better. But it's an ensemble group, and I got into that. I enjoy being part of that, being part of the process. So for years afterward, I became a resident artist at Pan Asian Rep, Crossroads Theater, and the great thing about that is there's an input. I love working on new plays, and most of what they do are new plays, so I really enjoy that. I like that input of being able to say, oh, I can create that look. I can make this happen. And then to find that that got written into the play itself by the playwright.
There's I don't think anyone has been a greater champion of me than Jim Houghton. Jim, and then John Diaz. Those are men, artistic directors who I'll sit in their office and say, you know, we got to do. And they'd be like, hold on, man. They were building the Signature Theater, building it, and Jim would call me and say, come down here. I want to say, we're going to lay the foundation for the diamond today. I want you to be there. I say, okay, Jim, what time? You know, and I'd come down, and it was just brick in there. They hadn't even put the wood on. I said, man, it's too cold in here. You got to put something warm. He said, man, I got some wood coming. We're going to put wood up here. It's going to be warmer. He said, but we're going to lay the foundation over here for the so-and-so. And I'm looking, and I'm saying, Jim, we got to do piano lesson in here. He said, slow down, hold on. I said, we got to do it, Jim. We got to do piano lesson. He said, well, wait a minute. Can I get the foundation put in? And I said, okay. And 2 days later, he called and said, okay, so we're going to get together and call August. And that's how that happened. And we called August, and we did piano lesson. It's like when I went to him and said, we need to do a season of this writer from NEC, that writer from NEC, this writer from, he said, well, so many writers, how do we pick? I said, well, let's do a season. He said, this theater is not built on doing seasons of any company. We're playwrights. We do playwrights. We do not do theater companies. Guess what they did? The Negro Ensemble Company. Whole season. Jim Houghton. So that's when you call home. When you walk in and you don't get everything you want, but that person gives you an audience and sees your mind and your heart and says, this human being is special or worth it, that I'm going to take the chance. And Jim did that, and he never did it again. There's no other theater company got honored at Signature. You know, and same with John Diaz. I have a play no one in the world would do but John. Everybody keeps saying we don't want to have this discussion. Well, we're having it now. We're having it out there in the world right now. So, but John said, that's the play you want to do? I said, yeah. He said, let's do it. So that's what you call a theater home. Not somewhere where you're just sitting around because they like your name and your awards, but that they hear your heart, they hear your mind, and they appreciate you and the things that you can bring as an artist.
Thank you both very much. I know who I'm going to call right after this. Certainly, I'm so grateful. We have 10 minutes or so for some Q&A. Do we have any questions from the audience at this time? Hello.
Excuse me?
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for the mic.
No, I can talk loud. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, there we
so
go.
I'm an older designer, and I come back when, there was the 80s, sorry. And one of the challenges in the barrier of entry that we see here is you got to work for free. That's not a reality for a lot of people. And going to Yale or going to Brown or these places is not a reality for those people. And the people that it's not a reality for are the ones that need to be here, right? Those are the ones that have the stories that are compelling. Those are the ones that are going to give us the compelling, authentic costume design or the authentic ideas outside of this sort of traditional, educated theatrical space. how do we make a place for those kids, the ones in the projects that live in Harlem, who won't even go to a theater? Do you know what I mean? Because working for free when I was a kid, you know, I would have to work at night at a hotel and then get up in the morning and do that. It's not a reality. We live in New York City. And even though there are people who are, you know, aggressive and they're going to go out and get that thing done, starving to work sucks. Mm-hmm. And I've done it.
You looking at a kid who was raised in a rooming house, born on the floor.
Got it.
And I went up to the community center, and they had a group called Loveland.
Yeah.
They did acting, African drums, singing, plays, and I found me a little place there. There are a lot of opportunities. If you want something, kids in the projects, kids that came up like me in the rooming house, and, you know, my mother was in the streets shooting heroin. And
I mean,
now
I was
here
homeless. I mean, we can do the
So I'm saying it's possible. All you got to be quite honest with you. Mm-hmm. If you seek it, if you really seek it, it's some place you can land. It might not be where you want at the time, but you got to find yourself in. Some people do plays at their church. Some people do plays at, you know, different places. So I don't think it's a dead end. I think it's an opportunity. I know MTC has a whole youth program where they take kids who have been at risk, I mean, that have done juvenile delinquent in prison, and they give them playwright classes. And I just feel that if you want it, you have to actively seek it. You know, sometimes we can't go seek them, but they can come seek the opportunities that are there. I just feel that way. Maybe I got lofty imagination or something.
It's harder now. The divide is wider after COVID. I'll be honest with you, because I live in the community, and it's a question of getting them to go to the spaces, but also talking about your thing about, you know, spaces that don't acknowledge the greater work of the community. Sometimes in my space, I have to acknowledge when things are performative and when things are really community, and then you make a decision whether or not you want to do it or not. A lot of people don't talk about the money aspect of this. You do it for the love of it, and then you get an agent, because the money is another conversation that's outside of it, and most of the time I write them in my contract.
Absolutely. I will say that our union, as well as other advocacy organizations that started during the COVID, in not only Design Action, but La Gente and several other groups, have really started doing participating in mentorship programs. USA in particular, they have one that they go into high schools, and I believe every designer has 2 or 3 mentees to get those conversations going. Also because I think it's easy for them to see themselves in performance and not necessarily in design.
Exactly, that's my biggest problem. Everybody wants to be in front of the mic, and I'm like, there's costume
There's
designers.
an exciting, absolutely.
And it's like there's lighting designers, there's sound designers, there's directors, there's the director world is more diverse, but like lighting, sound, sets, set builders. You know, rare if you find a set building company that's black.
Absolutely.
In my world, but.
And returning from COVID, there's so many positions in shops around the country that are still open.
Yeah.
Because nobody can find the people. So the training it's right about time. We need to train.
I'm an advocate for people getting paid.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Thank you.
That's why people don't leave this business and never return again after COVID, because they're not getting paid.
It's like, who gets paid in the beginning, though? I mean, we can go back and forth with it, but I mean, I didn't get paid. No one gets paid in the beginning. No one. It's, do you want to do it? If you, the only reason to be an artist is because you love it. There's no other reason. Ain't nothing guaranteed. The only thing guaranteed is you get the right to do the work. Ain't nothing else guaranteed. If anything else comes, you're blessed. That's, you know, I never thought they would pay me to do this. I swear to God. I never knew it was Broadway in my life. And I'm not unique. I ain't no unicorn. It's a bunch of us that feel the same way. So I just think you gotta, I'll just say, you just gotta find your way in and have the kind of perseverance and gumption and people like you that's in the community that's helping lead them to try to help guide them in the right direction.
I'll have to humbly disagree. I think if you really love your work, you get paid for your work.
I'm gonna tell you this.
Yeah.
I have in Brooklyn, at Bed-Stuy, I have a school. Every year I do 6 weeks, 2 weeks in the summer. In Lackawanna, New York, I have a whole art center. So I'm saying any kid that wants to do art in that community, white, black, Arab, Spanish, come to Ruben Santiago-Hudson Fine Arts Learning Center. So I'm saying, if you want it, we'll go back. We had this conversation. I don't want to waste everybody else's.
No, but again, from the apprentice level to the intern level, I'm against interns. I think people need to be paid for their
I agree with you. But I'm saying, if you expect as an artist to get paid, you run in. Anyway.
Yeah. Because that'll be
in terms of carpentry, design, master electrician work, absolutely. Those programs are there, and they do have a stipend. Would love to talk, and thank you so much, both of you. Over there, we have one question. Do we have a mic on that side of the house? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Britton. It's such a pleasure to be in a room with creators of color. I went to a predominantly white university, and none of my teachers, and I was here in New York, were of color at all. And one of the best lessons I've ever had is from my mom telling me that because you are black, you're gonna have to work twice as hard your entire life. And there was nobody in my institution to kind of translate that to the industry of like what it means to work twice as hard to exist as an artist. And you go into this space and you're like, I'm talented, I'm this. And so my question to y'all is, as a creative of color, which is an incredible opportunity for us to build our capacity from your expertise, and how do you navigate having to work, or do you believe that you have to work twice as hard in the position and the skin that you're in your artistry?
Yeah, absolutely.
Victor, Ruben.
Absolutely. You as a person of color, you got to be very clear. Don't wait for other people to put a crown on what you do. You have to somehow define by the nature of who you are and how hard you work and the quality of what you do, who you are. And when you find out your worth, then finally you have a little bit of leverage. Then you have a little leverage, and that leverage grows as your skill level grows, as your reputation grows. Then you get more leverage. But the only thing that you have in your power is the power to say yes or no, unless you're the decision maker. That's why I direct now. That's why I produce now. So I can give opportunities, so I can create opportunities. Other than that, I'm going for my ass. I'm taking care of my ass. You know, so the thing we have to think about Britain as people of color. In Britain, I mentee Britain. And he's here. But it's just like I'm learning from people, I'm learning from him. By his perseverance and the way that he fights, the way he goes into the game. And the thing about it is knowing who's with you, who supports you, who's behind you. You as a person of color, 99% of the time are walking into the room looking for somebody that's not a person of color to make a decision concerning what you're doing next. So what will take them over the edge, if it ain't no doubt, I am the baddest son of a gun that you gonna see up in here. And if you get somebody else, then you just made a bad choice, because it's apples and oranges. You wanted oranges, I'm apples, baby. But if somebody else wanted it because it's marketable. I always say, if I'm not here, I'm somewhere else. So if you don't have that, the only way you can't gain that out of the air. You just can't grab that as fluff. You got to earn it. You earn it by what you do, what you present, what you bring. You know, you just can't talk the game, you know?
I would also say this. My first 10 years of my career, I didn't design for like regional theaters until like a decade in. I was designing for every small minority-based theater in New York, in New Jersey. I looked them up, they looked me up. You would not, I mean, the joke was if there was a Fiji repertory theater, I would be designing it. That was the joke back then, because I was designing every ethnic group, every ethnic theater. I would do it. I would seek them out. So all I'm saying is I agree with you about going for it. You have to go after, no one's going to come and give you something.
No.
You have to go and take it, you know. And so if it means working for all these small theater companies that can't attract a big name designer, well, that's what I did. And that's where I made my reputation. And that's why I got the design for Color Girls.
So how long have you been designing? How long, if you don't mind saying?
Since 1974. And for Color Girls was the 6th show I ever designed in my life.
The original Color Girls you're talking
Original. For Woody King at the New Federal Theater. Yeah, I've done like almost a dozen 10 or 12 plays for them in my first 15, 20, including your show. That was New Federal also.
Oh man, that was a show.
Yeah.
I would like to share a couple of things that I think right now when I select shows or I select who I'm going to work with or for in the coming months, I choose the companies and spaces where I know I can be the best of myself, where I can bring the wholeness of who I am, every part, little bit of it, Puerto Rican, queer, etc., and it goes down that line. Because that's what makes my practice, that makes me the contributor that you want at the table. At least that's, if you invited me, that's what I'm thinking. But it is hard work, and I would say that still, after being in the field for a couple of decades, that I still bump into a lot of situations where I hear the woman designer here and the woman designer there, and I know that when it comes to gender, that is something also that I have to talk to my students about. When you go out there, that drafting needs to be right on. Those details need to be right on, because the carpenters are going to talk about who did this drawing. Oh, the woman designer. And that is something that I carry with me, unfortunately, from an experience that I had in a shop. I was just an intern that particular summer, but I know that those conversations are still very present. But when I choose what I want to do and to put my best work forward, I know that I have to be in those spaces where I can bring all of it. Thank you very much for the question. Any last comment? Yeah.
Very loud, but I have just one question. So I'm Maria, set designer based in Philly. Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Maria, set designer based in Philly, and I just wanted to come on. Oh.
Now it is.
I'll just speak loud.
There we go.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
I hear myself. Hi, I'm Maria, a set designer based in Philly, and I just have a question about, do you have any general advice for anyone who wants to make the big move to New York City? Like, is it worth it, or should I?
Great question. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
New York.
My advice is if you have work where you are, keep working. New York will get you.
Oh.
Because somebody you're working with going to come to New York and be like, are you available? I swear, because if you can bum rush it if you want, and it can happen. I mean, but the thing is, for me, the key to it is to continue to work. And it will, and I say this corny stuff over and over, it will reveal itself. It will show. But in the meantime, if you're trying to get to New York, chase those people that you think you would like to be next to, those lighting designers, because they who introduce you to the director. If you go to the director saying, I'm going to be a set designer for you, I promise you it ain't going to happen. But all of a sudden, if you come in the room with Rachel Hawk, if you come into the room with Mike Carnahan, you come into the room with,
Yeah.
then it'd be like, because Jane Cox is always bringing somebody up to me, Ruben, I want you to meet this person. And that person's in the family now. But it's hard for a director to just snatch, Mm-hmm. But connect yourself with someone who you really admire and appreciate and see if there's an end. But in the meantime, keep doing your work.
Yeah.
Because it's going to show the world who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you never get to New York ain't the end all say all, trust me.
Okay.
But I tell you, it is where the biggest sharks with the sharpest teeth are.
Uh-huh.
And when your teeth get that sharp, come on and bite them.
Okay.
Keep doing your work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.